Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Creator News Live. So excited to be with you guys today. We're gearing up for the holidays, so I'm excited to eat my weight in sides and desserts coming up for Thanksgiving. I don't know about you, Connor and Jerry, but I'm excited because I got to hang out with Jerry at CEX, and the dude is smart, and I've been binging his YouTube videos. So I'm going to give you guys all that information today, but you want to check out his channel because he is super smart when it comes to YouTube. So I'm super excited to dive in with that. We've already got some of our friends showing up. We got the amazing Dustin Stout saying, hey, and then Kira, who's amazing editor. Gosh, why are these so big all of a sudden? Let me see what's going on, Kira. I'm sorry. Sorry your head was so big there, Kira. It's okay.
It's so people know that you're live and it's not AI.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly.
Imperfection.
And we've got some other people showing up. The amazing Amy Keys is saying happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Amy. And then Kevin Shee, who I got to hang out with a little bit a couple days ago. He goes, happy Friday, friends. Gobble, gobble. That is so true. And then the amazing Ralph is saying hello, friends, from the Content Creators Accountant. So he's, I'm sure, getting ready to do a bunch of stuff. And we got Chris Stone saying Jerry is awesome. So we've already got a fan here. We've already got a fan here, Jerry. So Connor Brown, how's things going in Florida? The unsinkable.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's finally, a weather where we can actually enjoy outside. This is our prime time here in Florida during the winter and the fall. This is where we make our money. So it is great gearing up for the holidays. And then of course YouTube's going to be big for me, Jeff, I think in 2026, or I'm going to make more strategic play with it, I'll say. So this is a great and appropriately timed show. So interested to see what Jerry has to say about everything.
Yeah. And Connor, I'll ask all the questions. So you need to interrupt me if I get going, because I get laser focused, but now I'm going to hit
selfish. Be selfish with your questions. I welcome, selfish questions too.
And I am super selfish when it comes to questions because I have a bunch already. So I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Creator News Live. I'm Jeff C. and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the creator economy and so much more.
Have you ever wondered why your YouTube channel isn't growing the way you hoped? Maybe you catch yourself questioning what truly makes a video stand out, or maybe how some creators seem to break through while others stay stuck. If any of that feels familiar, well, you're in the right place, because today we're excited to welcome someone who's built a thriving YouTube presence while helping countless entrepreneurs do the same. Jerry Potter has grown multiple successful channels and teaches creators how to run their business in half the time without burning out. He's going to be sharing the strategies, his clarity, and the practical steps that actually move the needle. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind to get ready for this week's episode of Creator News Live. Jerry, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good. I'm excited to be here. And yeah, YouTube has given me a business and a life that I never could have imagined. And so I'm kind of on a mission now to make YouTube accessible for all business owners and marketers, no matter how busy they are, because it sounds like a bigger project than I think that it needs to be. So I'm excited to dive into that today.
Yeah, so his channel is amazing, and we'll give you all that information. If you're listening, it'll be in the show notes, wherever you're listening from. But before we get started, I want to, we've been doing this thing for all our guests where we have created an AI intro that we're using. So without further ado, here is Jerry Potter's theme song.
If your channel's moving slow and you're not sure where to go,
Jerry Potter's on the show,
ready now to help you grow.
So there you go.
That's amazing.
It gets better every week.
That guy's better looking than me. He's got a stronger forehead and jaw than I do. But
yeah, it's so much fun. So once again, thank you for being here, Jerry. I want to do a really quick shout out to our friends who are sponsoring the show. That is Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. Right now, they're having like a 40% off for new users. So if you haven't tried Ecamm before, make sure you go check it out. You can go to ecamm.com/Jeff and just click in the card. It'll give you that 40% off. So make sure you do that. If you've heard me talk about it before and like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time. It is the perfect time, 40% off. And by the way, they've also got an amazing thing coming up in the UK. They have Creator Camp coming up April 23rd through the 24th in the beautiful UK. You can find out more about that by going to tubefest.co.uk YouTube.com/creator-camp. They made it so easy for me to say, but just go there with that link that you see in the show notes or on the screen, and you can find out more about that. Their Creator Camp coming up in the United Kingdom. All right, so let's get going. We've got so many questions coming on. And as we go today, I want to ask the audience this before we kind of jump in with Jerry. If you had to pick one specific person for your next 8 YouTube videos, who would that be? Because we're going to get really specific today, but I want to know if you're just starting a YouTube channel or you have one for a while, what's the kind of your avatar with a one specific person that you would make this for your next 8 videos? I want you guys to be thinking about that today as we jump in, because we're going to be talking about how to grow a YouTube channel, or maybe if you're stuck. So I just wanted to jump in right away, Jerry, and say, you've shown that, YouTube now recommends small channels. You said this, I think, on a couple of your videos I just watched. They're showing these small channels more than ever, largely because AI helps YouTube understand those videos. So for a frustrated creator with a stalled channel, what's the first signal they should be sending YouTube to start getting recommended again?
Yeah, well, and I don't just say that to give people hope, although I think hope is important as well. If you don't believe something's going to work, it's probably not going to work. But yeah, the biggest change over the last couple of years is, we have always thought of YouTube as a search engine. And when I worked at an agency and when I first started teaching marketing to other people, I'd say, oh, YouTube's not a social media network. It is a search engine. People go on there, they search for their problems. But as the years have gone on, a couple of things have happened. One, fewer views are coming from search. So at first it was like, 40% of views come from search. Then I heard 30. And, earlier this year, I heard somebody say only 20% of views are coming from search. So if you use YouTube as a search engine, you're probably going, well, where are the views coming from, right? But as you mentioned, the algorithm has gotten really, really smart. So YouTube's goal from day one has always been to show the right video to the right person at the right time. So when Connor signs in, they want literally for him to have a screen full of videos that are, all Disney, or they're all something where Connor goes, oh my gosh, which one do I want to watch first? That's the goal. And it didn't used to be as good at matching those up. So they relied on titles, keywords, tags, what was in your description, all of these other things. As it got smarter over the years, it started to be able to hear what we said in the videos. Even if you didn't upload a transcript, it generated its own transcript. But now, and if you use Google's Notebook LM, you can see what it'll tell you about a video without even watching it. It knows what you say in the video, what you're wearing, what's in the background, how many people there, what cultures are mentioned, the nuance, emotion, all of these other things. So you could keyword stuff all you want. It's not going to be good enough because the algorithm is smarter than us at knowing exactly what our video is and who it's for. And so if you're feeling stuck, the first step is you essentially want to retrain the YouTube algorithm who your videos are for. And I sort of discovered this by accident a couple of years ago. My channel was originally called 5 Minute Social Media, and I was teaching Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok when it came along. I had some Snapchat marketing tutorials back in the day when we thought that was going to be a really relevant, platform for a local business. And, in that time, it was more search-based. 95% of my views were coming from search, from new viewers, which was great. But all of a sudden, I wanted to help people with podcasting as well. As podcasting got bigger on YouTube and we could do this video podcast and then turn it into shorts and reels and all this stuff, I used my background in radio and TV to come up with this system on how to design a show that you could turn into all your social media content. So it was still for small business owners, still related to social media. I had no online presence for it. I was helping private clients. Mm-hmm. So I decided to publish, at the time, I think I did 10 videos in a row on YouTube, all about how to start a podcast. How to start a podcast, the essential first step, how to pick your gear, how to pick a background if that looks okay on camera, just all of the different things. And I launched a podcast program. And within 30 days, somebody signed up for the program. And I said, hey, how'd you hear about me? And he said, oh, I Googled how to start a podcast, or I searched on YouTube for how to start a podcast. I forget which, but both of those were happening. And within 60 days, almost every person who joined the program had searched for how to start a podcast within the last 10 days and then come in and bought this $1,000 program. So basically I went, what happened here? And the algorithm relearned who I was trying to target. And all of a sudden, whether people were searching or they just had showed interest in podcasting, I was showing up for them. And so that was that first instinct. So the short version of this is to train the algorithm. I suggest making like 8 to 10 videos in a row. I call it your magnetic 8, but 8 videos in a row helping the same person solve the same problem. Once upon a time, these variety channels did well. They still can, but I think they're harder to establish. But if you are basically niching down so far that you're helping one person with one thing, then YouTube understands it faster. And that's how you can start getting your videos in front of people faster.
Very
So
interesting.
Jerry, that dovetails perfectly into this next sort of thing. And even in the comments, Akila is interested in watching because they were thinking of tossing everything out and starting a new channel just this morning because her page feels so stuck. Faceless page with almost 800 subs in less than 2 weeks. And the question that I have kind of related to that and a little bit what you already talked about, Jerry, is, you talk about how creators can confuse the algorithm, right? By posting too many different topics, right? You just said it yourself, 8 videos in a row on one topic that's really, really specific. People are just kind of posting stuff all over that they think are related, but in reality aren't. So how can a business owner really identify, whether their channel is starting to send those mixed signals, like too many different types of content, too many different topics that they're talking about, and what steps can they take to just fix their channel without having to go back and just start deleting old videos?
It starts with research, just like anything. And I will say, like this magnetic 8, if somebody comes to me and they have an existing channel and it's stalled out, it's not working, this is the first thing we do. And if somebody comes to me and say, I want to launch a new channel, this is the first thing we do. So it's one of those things where I know, once you've invested time in something, you've got that sunk cost bias and you're like, well, I don't want the new channel strategy. I want the existing channel strategy, but it really is the same. We're almost kind of starting over. And so the first step is to do research. The great news is now with AI, is not hard to do at all. And so basically go into ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the platforms that have a deep research function. And if you're not familiar, this is where it'll go out and it'll scour the internet in whatever way you want for 5 to 30 minutes, or I've heard some people have it go hours, and essentially find out what is being said. And so you would go in there and you would tell ChatGPT about your business, and you would want to find out what are the most asked questions around this. Where are people getting stuck? And it'll come back and give you this incredible report, depending on exactly the prompt you put in, but this incredible report based on exactly, what you told it to be, and you'll see what the most asked questions are. That's where you want to start. The second part of the magnetic 8, though, is to literally choose the questions that are keeping people up at night. So, and that's, theoretically keeping them up at night. Some people are heavy sleepers, but the goal on YouTube is to show up on the homepage, to show up in the feed, to show up in suggested, in the sidebar, different places like that, where somebody sees it, catches their eye, and they go, oh, yeah, I've got to look at that right now. And so to give you an example with YouTube, when I did my magnetic 8 to, again, retrain the channel, it wasn't like how to set up a YouTube channel, because somebody might be thinking, oh, I might be thinking about that, right? So maybe they'll click on that. But for your magnetic 8, you want it to be things that are along the lines of why am I not getting more views? For example, with YouTube, that's a question that comes up a lot. If you were teaching starting on YouTube, it might be a slightly different path, but it's like, do I need expensive equipment, or can I just film with my phone? So you're going to identify those questions that, the ones that people are sort of obsessing over and they're always going in the back of their minds, not the ones that they're like, oh, I want to look that up eventually, so that you get that click when they first show up. And so again, with AI, we can do the deep research. And by the way, you ask the AI where to go. Reddit is incredible because there are all these public forums. You can search Quora, public Facebook groups. And another tip when you're crafting your prompt, depending on your industry, if stuff changes a lot, ask it to only get things from the last 6 months. If you're in a space where nothing's changed in 10 years, then you can go back further and more data is better.
Jeff, I have a follow-up question because I'm going to be selfish, and Jerry, let me be selfish for this, episode. I do something like that for generating new content. I love deep research. I love asking the models, find me questions people are asking. And just like you're saying, Jerry, I say, search Reddit, search, video comments, search public forums, all those things. I also ask it and then find the questions that are being asked but aren't being answered by my competitors. Is that something where you want to do this competitor analysis like right up front, or is it more just about finding the questions that are being asked and go from there? Because I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube, right? So how do you set yourself apart from those questions if everyone's asking them already?
Yeah. Well, how do you set yourself apart is a separate question, and we can certainly talk about that. But for a long time, the strategy on YouTube was to do your keyword research, find the questions that people were asking, and in those questions, find the ones that your competitors were not covering or ask them in a different way, right? That's when it was keywords. But YouTube learned synonyms. So now it doesn't matter if it's how to start a podcast, how to create a podcast, how to make a podcast. Like, that part of YouTube is dying or maybe gone at this point. And so you can certainly take that extra step and find out what's not being answered. But with your magnetic 8, you aren't looking to find the random questions that only a few people are asking. You really want to try and be answering the biggest questions. The goal of your magnetic 8 is that if somebody finds your channel, they land on your homepage or your channel page, and they literally go, "Oh gosh, which one should I watch first? Because I've been wondering about all these," right? It's not a series. It's not part 1 through 8. Every video stand on its own, but that's the feeling you want from them. And so if you start doing something really obscure, and don't get me wrong, there's power in obscure. I have a few videos that are the biggest in the history of my channel because nobody else has answered those questions. But I think for the magnetic 8, you just want it to feel very pure for what that person is thinking about, or the majority of the people in that niche are thinking about.
So if I'm hearing you right, Jerry, you don't need to be so concerned about finding that question that nobody's ever asked. It's you want to make sure your video is answering a question that a lot of people have. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, and this is new and this is recent. The downside of YouTube's algorithm getting smart is I used to be able to go out and find a way to title my video that nobody else had titled, but still matched up with what people are searching for. And I pretty much knew it was going to work, right? Like once my channel was established, not in the first 6 months. And it was really fun, but that's just not the case anymore. But at the same time, when I was doing podcast, I had a company say, "Hey, we want you to make an in-depth podcast tutorial. We want to sponsor you." And it was this 25-minute video. This was after the individual videos I did about how to start a podcast. How to start a podcast was crazy high search, crazy high competition. But because I made a good video, but also because it appealed to what people were looking for, YouTube was able to match it up, and it's done really well.
Awesome. That's really fascinating. And this is what's so cool about having amazing guests like Jerry on, is like the new stuff that's happened, not just the things that all the gurus have always said, but you get people in the trenches like Jerry. I love this stuff. So we got some great questions, comments from our studio audience. Oh, Jerry, you going to say something? Go ahead.
Let me just add one more thing too, to what Connor was saying. If you have the time, and for other videos, if you can find the questions that people are asking and not being answered, then that's still a valid strategy. But my main thing is helping entrepreneurs do this in 90 minutes a week. So we look a lot at ROE, return on effort. And so we're, some of those things that could be helpful, we kind of go, well, yeah, if you want to go back and spend 20 hours a week on your channel, you can do that. But it doesn't fit into the 90-minute or the 2-hour container.
Very, very cool. A couple comments real quick. This is Dustin's talking about Connor's question. He says, you can ask that question. And of course, if you don't know who Dustin is, he is the founder of Magi, which is an amazing AI. I'll put that link up later on because we talk about it all the time. But he goes, you can ask that question, but it's unlikely to produce real results. The degree of nuance needed to find questions my competitors aren't answered is too deep for most models. That is great to know. And he goes, also, when doing deep research with AI, you have to think about how many layers of research is needed and whether or not that is possible. Most deep research can perform 2 to 3 queries max. So once again, hang out with Dustin, go to his Facebook group. He's got a ton of great stuff there. I do want to bring up Ralph's question. He goes, for my weekly sermon show, I will hit 100K subs in the next day or so. But I have been spending some money. That's amazing, Ralph, by the way.
That's awesome.
Spending some money to boost this, and it's grown this in 30 days. I also use vidIQ. Any other ideas? Because I think if you're boosting it, that doesn't count towards your watch hours for getting monetized. Or I can't remember exactly what it is, but I'm sure Jerry knows. But what other things would you tell Ralph to do?
Well, it sounds like he's already monetized if he's approaching
Oh, yeah,
100,000.
yeah.
But as far as the boosting goes, that and people haven't seen, kind of like Facebook has always had this boost button.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube now has a promote button, and you can essentially, without learning the Google Ads interface, promote your videos. I've been looking for more people to talk about this because the unspoken truth of YouTube for years has been if you run ads on your channel, it'll kill your organic reach. YouTube actually just came out about 2 weeks ago and said, hey, that's not true. They each run separately. But anecdotally, a lot of people have experienced that over the years. At the same time, sometimes I'm like, man, if I could, I would be happy to throw $100 behind this video because
Yeah.
I know I get 5% of the views turn into leads for me, good warm leads. So that's interesting to hear. I think there's, definitely possibilities for more experimentation with the promote button. But because I've got this organic thing going, I've been hesitant. I'm thinking about starting a new channel before the end of the year, and maybe I'll play with it there. Regarding vidIQ, I mean, of all the tools out there, I was a longtime TubeBuddy user, and TubeBuddy does a lot of great stuff. But I signed up for vidIQ a few months ago, and they have advanced so far with AI and different things like that. So it really has become a powerful tool. They've even got the Opus Clip thing built in now, where it'll take your long form video and chop it into like shorts and reels. And I ran one the other day just to see, and the first one I clicked on, I was like, this is not too bad. So it's pretty, it's become a great tool.
That's interesting because a lot of times there was still a lot of work that I found with those AI clippers kind of thing. And so it wasn't worth it in the long run for me because it didn't really save me time, but they keep getting better, and that's not going to last for long, I have a feeling. So
exactly.
And then Ralph has a follow-up I just wanted to pull up. He's not monetized yet, which stinks. And he says, to be honest, I've been spending about $200 a week to get his channel.
Oh, wow.
To that.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's an accountant. Like, he'll write it off, I'm sure. So so no, Ralph's a great guy, and I appreciate Ralph you asking the questions and being transparent on there. So I wanted to ask this question. It kind of ties into all this stuff that we've been asking questions about. But you've said in your videos that relevancy is the real driver behind getting clicks, and that's what we want. We want clicks. So how can a local business, or maybe somebody like Ralph, or a small brand add relevancy without jumping on the trends or constantly re-recording tutorials every time something changes? Listen, I've done Descript tutorials. They change like every day.
Oh my God.
It's just, it's so hard. So how can we be relevant without, jumping on every trend and having to redo stuff all the time?
Yeah. So relevancy, the way that I talk about it, and there's a video on my channel about this. Originally, when I started my channel in 2017, and then at the beginning of 2018, I was like, people looking for social media tutorials are looking for the latest version. So I just started putting 2018 at the end of everything. And that's when my channel took off. But it doesn't always have to be dates. Relevancy is anything that's just going to help you win the click. And so it can just be little psychological triggers like latest update, newest version. Even if it's not, if all of the results when somebody searches or it's in their feed don't say that and yours does, it's more relevant. It can be for solopreneurs. It can be for busy professionals, so sometimes just calling out the niche or the audience of who it's for, all of a sudden that is more relevant to them. So relevancy isn't always topical. So I don't want you to think about relevancy as topical. It can just simply be anything that makes that video look more relevant to whoever the viewer is. So there's a lot of little things you can do about that. It definitely doesn't have to be, the December 2025 update all the time. But I do have tutorials that I've just changed the year on every year, and they just keep getting more views. I never say the year in my video. I'll just change the title and sometimes the thumbnail. I have a reminder that pops up in January. It's like, switch everything over.
So just real quick follow-up, Connor, before your question, does changing titles, if you have one that's, because we're talking about being stagnant or your YouTube's not growing, if you put a video out there and it's just not working, or you think you need more clicks than, compared to your other videos, does the title changing actually make that big a difference when you're doing it?
And also the flip side of that too, if it's performing well and you change it like from 2024 to 2025 or whatever, can that impact it?
Yeah. So changing titles can impact both ways as long as the video is still getting impressions. So the basic cycle of YouTube analytics. So when I work with people on analytics and they're like, what do I do with all these numbers? And it's like, there's just 4. We just need to look at 4 of them. So First, a video gets an impression. That means that it shows up on a search page, in the sidebar, in recommended, on the homepage, something like that. So that means it shows up for somebody. Then if somebody clicks, that's your CTR or your click-through rate. And then if they watch a certain amount, that's your average view duration or watch time. And as long as those things keep happening, YouTube will keep giving it more impressions. So it's just this loop that keeps happening over and over again. So if your video is still getting impressions, but it's not performing well, then updating your thumbnail or title can absolutely help change it. I've seen people talk about this where maybe they release a video, and this is where maybe you have an established audience. You release a video with a certain title and thumbnail that appeals to your established audience, does really well. Maybe it's a little bit more personal, like here's my thoughts on or something like that. And then it starts to taper off. And then they re-optimize it by changing the title and or the thumbnail for a mass appeal audience. As long as it's still getting impressions, it can take off. So again, YouTube shows it, gives it an impression. As long as people are clicking on it, then they'll keep, and watching it, then they'll keep giving it more impressions. So the main thing is, your thumbnail is what gets people to usually click along with the title. It's very good practice, again, if you make the time for it to go back and change out thumbnails that are underperforming compared to the rest of your channel.
Awesome.
Nice. And I love that. Just creating a reminder for yourself too. Like make it easy, just set that and have it be future use problem. You mentioned retention and we were talking about boosting posts, and Utator, aka Sean, he says, so he stopped paying to promote his videos on YouTube because his retention percentage was so low. He stopped it. Retention went from 2% to 15%. So I think that kind of promotion thing, I think there's a lot still going on with that. Maurice asks a question which we kind of touched on a little bit. He says, which is better between TubeBuddy and vidIQ? I know, Jerry, you were talking about how you love using vidIQ now, but for someone who's just starting out, I'll kind of reframe the question. Which one do you think they should go with?
I recommended TubeBuddy for years. It's what I started out with. I have and pay for both of them right now. I can promise you that they're both running their cheapest rates of the year right now too, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But I think, TubeBuddy got bought by another company a couple of years ago, and they've been announcing more stuff coming. But vidIQ has taken advantage of the AI revolution, and they've really evolved it quite a bit. So anyone who came to me now and said, hey, where do I start? I would point them to vidIQ.
Love it. That's awesome. When it comes to, what a creator wants to create content for, I think a lot of creators often say, what's a need-based topic versus a want-based topic title, right? Like how can a creator kind of come up with appealing right to the person that they're talking to, or they want to talk to, their ideal client, and understand that you need to have a topic that's need-based and turn it into a want-based title. How do people go about just coming up with good titles, good hooks, those sorts of things that can increase what you were talking about, Jerry, the click-through and then the retention?
This is that area where our expertise hurts us a lot, because sometimes we're stubborn and we're like, no, this is what they need. I'm going to put out what they need. But if you put out what somebody needs, then nobody is going to click on it because they don't know that they need that yet. And so that's why we have to flip that around and figure out what they want. And so whether you're doing research, whether it's, using AI or, doing basic searches on YouTube or talking to your clients and customers, that's where we really want to find out what are those things they're already thinking about and worrying about. That's what you have to build your titles and thumbnails around. And then within that video, you can tell them, more about what you actually need. So for example, we brought up this video about adding relevancy to your titles. That video, when I was working on it, was called how to make your videos seem more relevant or something like that. But that's not somebody that the average person would sit around going, oh, I need to make my videos more relevant, right? Right. So I forget exactly, but I think the title I ended up with was "This Easy Title Trick Blew Up My Channel" or something like that. Because that's what they want. They want to blow up their channel. A lot of people don't even want better titles, right? Like that's still not what they want. Might be what they need to blow up their channel. So, so always start with the want and then see how you can tie it back to whatever it is that you teach or you help people with on the back end. But if it's not the thing they're already thinking about and looking for, you're not going to get any traction anywhere, no matter how good the video is.
Wow. There's so many great already. So many in the first section, so many great moments from Jerry. By the way, I want you guys to know, and I usually save this till the end, but I want to make sure that we get plenty of time. If you want to find out more about Jerry Potter, make sure you go to donebylunch.co. That's donebylunch.co. And he's got this great resource that you guys can get at yt90roadmap.com. So yt90roadmap.com. Jerry, can you tell people what exactly that is and why somebody should sign up for that?
Yeah, so YT90 is my system for growing a channel in 90 minutes a week. And for years, I would talk to friends and other smart business owners, and they're like, I don't have time for YouTube yet. I'm, next year, 2026, 2027. I got a message yesterday. Hey, I'm planning to start a channel in May. And so people are always putting YouTube in the future and not starting. And so this year, well, first of all, when I started my channel, I had a full-time job at an agency that was not a just 40 hours a week kind of job. I had 2 kids under 8. My wife worked evenings, so I was single dad in the evenings. It wasn't like I have all this time, and I wasn't willing to give up time with my family to, do this YouTube thing. Now we have AI and smaller channels are growing faster. So this year I started saying to people like, what if you could do it in 3 hours a week? No, I don't have time. What if you could do it in 2 hours a week? What if you could do it in 90 minutes a week? And that was the moment that people sort of leaned in and they were like, tell me more, And so now I've kind of made it my mission to make YouTube accessible for business owners, no matter how busy they are now. And so what I've spent months developing this year is the YT90 system. And so if you go to yt90roadmap.com, you will basically get the overview of here's how to grow a channel in 90 minutes a week. And I'll tell you that, some of the stuff that's in there we talked about today, like the Magnetic 8. But then there's also more about, making editing easier, what to focus on, what not to focus on, because that's a big thing. As I mentioned earlier, if you got 10 hours a week, it's a different strategy than if you've got 90 minutes to 2 hours a week.
Yeah. So I wanted to give you guys, usually we wait till the end for this, but I want to give it to you now because this is such a good resource that I want to make sure you guys check it out. So yt90roadmap.com. Make sure you check it out. As you can tell, Jerry knows his stuff. So we're going to continue on to editing videos because this is something a lot of people struggle with. So I wanted to ask you, the audience, if you could only automate or simplify one step in your editing process, what would that be? So if you could snap your fingers and make something super easy in your editing process, I want to know what that is. Drop it down below wherever you're watching from, because I think that would be really good to share with the group. So talking about editing, you have a really cool framework that I think it was like 2 or 3 videos ago you talked about, decisions versus actions kind of framework. And I really, really like this because it reminded me of the thing they call the Hemingway Bridge, which if you're a writer, you never just stop writing. You kind of leave yourself for the next day, or when you're going to jump into it, you're going to write half a chapter or a half of a paragraph, so you don't start cold the next time. And it really reminded me of that, the decisions versus actions framework you talk about. So how can creators apply this process that you've come up with, even if they feel overwhelmed or disorganized before they start the editing process?
So I learned this year, and I'd heard it before, but didn't really know how to apply it. I had a YouTube program before the one I had now, and it was your traditional course. Come watch all these videos, launch your channel. People finished it, like the retention or the completion rate was really good. The reviews were great. People wanted to recommend it to people, and then I would say, well, how many videos have you published? And they go, oh, I haven't done that yet. I haven't published any videos yet. And so another thing I spent some time focusing on this year was figuring out why. So I went back and I interviewed some of the students. I studied the psychology of learning and different things like that. And something actually one of my students mentioned was that when we make decisions, we use one part of our brain, and we take action, we use a different part of our brain. So everything we do is a decision or an action. And so once she said that, I looked at my program, and it was happening over and over again, where I would ask somebody to make a decision and take an action at the same time. So for example, we would decide on what's your channel messaging and have you create the banner and update the description and all of that like in one setting, right? It was the same module. And it was overwhelming and people got stuck. So now I encourage people to separate decisions and action. So in my program, we have decision weeks and we have action weeks. So we don't do those things at the same time. And I started applying it to my video editing. When we edit videos, the reason it takes so long is because we're constantly making all of these decisions as we go through. Should I keep this? Should I cut it out? Should I have B-roll here or not? Which B-roll should I use? Different things like that. So what I encourage people to do now, and I describe this as the real key to editing faster, and it's not AI, is basically write yourself instructions for how you're going to edit your videos ahead of time once, almost like you're writing instructions for someone else to follow, and make all the decisions. So I'm going to remove all my screw ups, obviously. I'm going to take out the big gaps where I lost my thought and I looked at the ceiling while I tried to figure out what I was going to say next. I'm going to add a title slide at the beginning, and then I'm going to add a banner at the bottom for each key point I make, for example. Kind of like you're doing live here, for this, Jeff, for people watching on the video. But decide that ahead of time. And then when you actually go and edit your video, all the decisions have been made, and you're just following the list. And it can be, even if it is B-roll, it can be add one B-roll clip every 30 seconds. Do not spend more than 20 seconds choosing the clip. Like right. If you spend more than 20 seconds choosing the clip, go with whatever you got and move on. So when you remove the decisions from editing, it goes so much faster.
That is so genius. So genius.
That is awesome. And I think our friend Tater, Sean, can really take that to heart, because he says, I am a little bit of a hoarder when it comes to video. Wish I had someone on my shoulder telling me what to get rid of. And of course, I think that also eats into the time, right? So Sean, if you do this, if you lay out what exactly you want to be, you don't have to listen to anyone on your shoulder. You just focus right there on your perfect SOP. It's almost like an individual personal SOP for you. Jerry, you talked a lot about, documenting dozens of these editing tips that weren't just about using AI, right? That still had like the human touch for people. For creators who I think feel pressured to maybe adopt every new AI tool, we probably are enablers, Jeff, if we're thinking about it.
We are, very much so. Yeah.
Bring up every new AI tool and tell people they got to use that. But you don't, right? You need to be a little bit choosy with the tools that you use. How would you suggest creators using AI tools and then also deciding when to just go the old school human method that might be a little bit faster even?
I went to Vid Summit, the YouTube conference, last month, and I walked around asking people, hey, what's your tip for editing videos faster? And nobody brought up AI stuff, which kind of surprised me. Mm-hmm. But I think, the key here is, this is the way I look at it with all the AI stuff, because nobody's not overwhelmed, right? We're all overwhelmed. So know that that's normal. But as you're looking at the stuff, don't look at things unless they solve a problem that you are currently having. So that's one thing. I think we spend too much time trying to fix things that aren't broken in our video editing or in our business or whatever. And and I'm just as guilty as anybody, right? It's like shiny object. Oh my gosh, this is, right. So if you are literally struggling to figure out what to cut out of your videos, as Tater said, right? Like, what do I cut out of my videos? And then somebody advertises an AI tool to do that, then maybe you take a second to look at that, because if you didn't spend 2 hours trying to decide what to cut, because obviously everything you make and everything comes out of your mouth is gold, then it would be a massive time saver. By the way, what I do is I ask ChatGPT I'll paste my transcript in and I'll say, hey, what's going to hurt my retention? What's not necessary for the overall vision of this video? And it's brutally awesome. Again, when it's your baby, you're like, you should take this out. You don't need it. I'm like, oh, but that part was so good. I like that part, and you can agree or disagree with it. But that's how I look at these AI tools. If it's not solving a problem that I have, then it's not worth looking at right now. It'll be there later. Because when you try and fix things that aren't real problems, maybe it gets 5 to 10% better. But if you try and fix things that are problems, then you can have a huge jump in improvement of quality or time spent or different things like that.
Jeff, I'm going to be selfish again and ask another follow-up.
Okay.
Here we go. That it is editing adjacent, but I think probably even more important than editing, and that's thumbnail creation. I feel like I've seen a million AI tools saying, we'll give you the perfect thumbnail, or here's our thumbnail pack of 75 thumbnails that you can use. And it's just a way to kind of make that process easier and quicker, right? But sometimes, like, does that work? Does the template version of these viral thumbnails work, or an AI tool to create thumbnails work? Like, how do you go about thumbnail generation?
Well, let me say first, I think we're about 60 days away from, if you have the right prompt, you're going to be able to go into Google's Nano Banana and tell it what you want, and it's going to be able to make it. They just announced an update, I think earlier today, about how keeping characters consistent through revisions and keeping the text consistent through revisions is now been fixed. So like the way they're advertising is you literally go in and you'd be like, make me an infographic with this spreadsheet, and it'll just make it. So I think that's where we're going. But anything that saves you time, like a template pack, can be worth it. I think the best thing to do is try and come up with your own, and I think it may be worth investing in a graphic designer if you don't have even the Canva skills to do this, but come up with your own way that you want your thumbnails to look. I think putting faces on them, and if you're the presenter, putting your face on them is still really, really good. And then it's not even so much about the design so much, I think, as choosing what words you're going to put on there. What 1 to 4 words will you put on there that will make somebody want to read the title? And then the last element that I think is really important, so we have face, we have teaser words, is something that makes them go, like, attracts the person so they know what that's about. So almost all my thumbnails have a YouTube logo on them so that somebody goes, oh, this is about YouTube. When I was doing podcasting stuff, there was like a picture of a microphone on them so somebody would know that. So if your thumbnail is clever and curiosity inducing, but they don't know that even the general idea of what it's about, that's when I don't think they work very well. I worked with one client where I was writing scripts and writing her thumbnails, and she, make sure I get this right, she teaches French to Swedish women. And so I wrote everything in English, and then she used translation apps and to translate everything, because she speaks all 3 languages. It was really fun. But for thumbnails, I'm like, all right, we can't put any words on there in French because they don't speak French yet. So how do we do this? So we ended up adding like an Eiffel Tower or a French flag or something like that to each of the thumbnails to, again, this kind of comes back to relevancy. But when you're trying to win the click, you want the person's brain to go, oh, that's my thing. So if you're an accountant, it might be a dollar sign or a picture of a spreadsheet, or, for the content creator's accountant, for example, that kind of thing.
Awesome. So I want your thought. So I showed you the animated version of the screens because it says fix your channel. It's got the YouTube logo. Good, bad, not, and it's in my style for my channel. Was that a
So fix your channel is kind of like that. Like that could be anybody and it could be nobody.
Okay.
So for the words for that, like if let's say it is the one for this, I might have it be something like these 8 videos will give you more views, or something like that. Like if you were going to tease the magnetic 8, or if you had the YouTube logo on there, you might have something like you're confusing YouTube's algorithm. I know I'm going over my 3 to 4 word limit there, but if I had more time, I'd probably come up with something else. But you want them to, you have the YouTube logo there, so they know it's for them. You got the face. I actually like the wrench, the wrench and even though I don't have a cool flannel like that, the wrench and the flannel are kind of a fun combination. But the words is the main thing I think that could be improved, where it would help somebody think, I haven't seen this before.
Interesting. Because what I usually do is I tell like what the show's about, and then I say, I want what you should put on the thumbnail. Like, give me 4 words, and that's what AI helps a lot. But I really liked your idea of being more specific than what even ChatGPT gives you. And you could probably even ask it, which I will be doing now after this, is saying like, how can I be more specific, or I need to make it for 2025 or whatever, like you were saying. I think that's really, really interesting.
One of my favorite things real quick about thumbnails is if you can, and AI is great at this, like if you can scan your outline, or if you write full scripts, I only do outlines, but scan your outline and look for something that could be visually represented, that would be weird. So for example, if I was in the video, I was talking about, well, I could be the magnetic 8.
Mhm.
And so on the cover, I'm saying, here's why you're not getting more views on the thumbnail, and I'm holding a gigantic magnet.
Right.
Then the brain goes, what's the magnet for?
Yeah.
Or if I told a story that involved a lemon and I'm holding a lemon, somebody's like, wait, what does a lemon have to do with YouTube views? So that kind of stuff can work really well if you have it in your outlines.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great advice. I do want to pull up. This is a great question by Ralph. Really quick. Let me get my. There we go. He says, I have been told that with YouTube, I should start with the title and the thumbnail and then build the episode around it. What are your thoughts about that, Jerry?
I love this question. That is literally what almost everybody says. And I don't know that it's wrong. It's probably smart because, again, nobody's going to click on your video if your thumbnail and your title don't make them want to click on your video. My brain just doesn't work that way. And so I do it the opposite. I come up with the topic, I outline my video, then I decide on my title and my thumbnail. Again, what everybody says is probably the best advice, unless your brain just doesn't work that way. Sometimes I'll try it. Like sometimes I'll try and come up with it that way, but I just find it slower, and I'm trying to do things as efficiently as possible. So I think whatever works for you, but I do think that's strong advice if your brain works in that way. Of course, now you can test up to 3 thumbnails and test up to 3 titles. So in that sense, it is, even harder then, because it's like, okay, I'm going to come up with 3 titles and 3 thumbnails before I start. Right. That's just more friction. And so a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with are having trouble just getting the friggin' videos out the door. Right. And so we got to remove our own roadblocks. So again, yeah, Ralph, do what works best for you.
Very cool.
That's awesome. I think, another thing about getting stuff out the door as quickly as possible is we are also our own worst enemies. Like we were talking about with Tater, with Sean, especially when it comes to like over editing, right? We see these videos that are doing really, really, really well, and they're edited to the 9s, right? Yeah. And we don't realize, it's because that creator has a team behind them because they've been doing it for years and years and years, and they're a pro at it at this point, and they have a team of pros that are doing it. We don't have time. As entrepreneurs, as solopreneurs, we don't have that time, yet we still waste it over editing, trying to look perfect. So Jerry, how can creators and people who want to post more on YouTube balance being polished with editing less, like you're talking about? And maybe it's something like, pausing more while you're filming, or letting some imperfections on screen, right? Like, where is that balance of looking good, but then also editing less?
So last year, YouTube did this big study to find out what made people satisfied watching videos. And they didn't ask people. If you've ever done anything with market research and focus groups and things like that, it's really hard to learn what people actually want. So they actually connected sensors to people's brains and measured basically the pleasure centers of their brains while they were watching videos to figure out exactly what made them enjoy it. And the number one thing above everything else was some sort of emotional connection with the person on the screen or what was being said in the video. And so when it comes to editing, the only time they found that fancier editing actually made a bigger impact on viewer satisfaction is when it increased the emotional connection with the person on the screen. So does music make a video more satisfying? Maybe, if it adds more emotion. If it doesn't, it's potentially a waste of time. Does B-roll make the video on the screen more emotionally compelling? Maybe, if it's really showing something. But if it's just filling time, like here's somebody typing on their keyboard, so you're not looking at my face the whole time, then no, it's probably not worth it. So it was a really fascinating study. The way that I look at it, and the way we talk about it with YT90, like if you've got YouTube 90 minutes a week, one, focus on what you're saying in the video more than the way that you're editing. What you're saying, adding the emotion to how you're saying it. Like if you're teaching something, explaining or at least insinuating the stakes there. If you get this right, here's how great it is. If you get it wrong, here's how terrible this is. That's emotional connection. So focus on that. And then when you are editing, if you can just get out the mistakes and the pauses, add a few visuals that help the viewer follow what you're saying, because a lot of people listen to YouTube, right? They have it open in another tab. So that's where I think, banners and titles can help them kind of follow along. Then I think that's a great minimum. And I would rather produce more videos at that level than fewer that had, sound effects and flashing graphics and
Right.
things like that. The other thing we're seeing a lot, and this is a huge conflict right now. I was exchanging messages with a potential client yesterday, and she was like, "I'm so confused. Half the people are saying I have to have fancy editing to hold everyone's attention, and then half people are saying, let it breathe. No editing is necessary."
Right.
And what's happening right now is TV viewing of YouTube videos is skyrocketing.
Yep.
I'm in a community where some people are getting 95% of their views from TV. I'm at 5%. Like, people are watching my tutorials or watching on their phone or their computer. So it's not for everybody. You can see this in your analytics. But so right now we're going through this shift, but people are looking sometimes to slow down, really enjoy something. I think we're seeing the TikTok backlash of just this, when somebody's just swiping and they're, all the sound effects and
Right.
all those different things, they're just ready for something that breathes a little bit. And so I want to give anyone who is listening to this permission to let go of perfectionism, because it doesn't exist. And I say that as a recovering perfectionist.
Right.
And let your stuff breathe a little bit and see what happens, because it's not worth the extra 2 hours to try and make it extra fancy at that point. If the words you're saying are helpful to somebody, then the rest is so much less relevant.
That's so funny. So my parents, of all people, now watch more YouTube than anything else. I've shared stuff with them. I've given them access to things. They watch YouTube. They love to watch YouTube. I don't know if it's because it's shorter, bite-sized stuff or what, or it's very specific that my dad likes to watch, these certain shows. I don't know, but it's amazing how much YouTube they watch more than anything else. My parents. Speaking of
But
family,
it's not just shorter stuff. Some stuff, I mean, I'm in a community with people that are putting up 45-minute videos.
Yeah.
And people are watching them like crazy. I met a woman at Vid Summit who literally videotapes herself cleaning her house. And sometimes it's an hour and 20 minutes, and her retention is really high. So
she can
it's
come to my
bizarre.
house and clean.
Yes.
Better than a Roomba. Abby, my daughter, has this great question. She goes, do you have a formal system for testing titles or thumbnails, etc., or do you just sort of notice and adjust as you go?
I'm implementing one right now, and I'll tell you what I've got. So once a month, for years, I didn't look at my analytics. I was just like, yeah, it's growing, whatever. But I realized when I was really going to double down on teaching this to other people a couple of years ago, that I really needed to learn how to do this better. So I make sure to sit down and look at my analytics. I'm not an analytics person. Like, when I worked in an agency, somebody else looked at that stuff and then told me what we needed to fix, and then I would change the creative. So I look at the analytics, and I do it once a month, and I look at those key categories, and I essentially look at the videos that have a lower click-through rate than my channel average. So I forget what my channel average is. I want to say 5 or 6 or something like that, 5 or 6% click-through rate. And if something's doing less than 5, then I might go back and say, oh, maybe I can change out the thumbnail. Did I have an idea I didn't use? Now with the AI tools, or soon we're going to literally just be able to go, hey, change this out. And I'll go back and change that. Or if a video is not performing well, again, with the click-through rate, then I might look at the title and think about how I could change it. If a video that I think should be doing better, like getting more views from search, isn't doing well, then maybe sometimes I'll look at changing the title. But it's once a month. You really can't do anything with a video unless you have a lot of data to work with, because you have a huge channel. You can't do anything with the data until a video's been out for a couple of months anyway. So it's kind of that's why I just don't bother except going in once a month and looking at some of the recent ones, because videos take time.
Yeah, that's great advice. Last question before we move really quickly to our last section. I wanted to ask you about how you time block this decision day from action day. Just looking at our comments, I think people are like, oh, that's a great idea, separating that so you don't have that friction in your head. So that time block where you separate the decision day from the action day changed how you run your whole business. So how would you adapt that specifically for like a solopreneur who only has like an hour a day, or even just weekends?
So, if you're limited on time, you could certainly do a decision half hour and a decision half hour, if you've only got an hour a week. But decision time can really apply to so many different places in our business. I used to be one of those people that it was just like, if I had free time, I was consuming something, right? So if I go on a walk, if I go on a hike, I'm driving, I've got to listen to a podcast, I've got to listen to an audiobook. I love looking for ways to do, self-improvement. And several years ago, when I was still single dad at night, my wife came home and I had a really challenging night with the kids. And she just is like, I'd gotten cranky. She's like, just go for a walk, go for a walk. And I'm like, fine. It was raining. I put my coat on. We were still in Seattle at the time. And I just went for a walk, and I think I forgot my headphones that night. So I wasn't listening to anything, and I just let my mind wander, and amazing things happened. Now I hike 4 to 5 times a week. And if I don't have anything like planned, I'll still let my mind wander for the first 10 to 15 minutes of my hike, because it's amazing what your brain will do when you give it space. So decision time can happen while you're driving, while you're, I don't recommend doing it while you're lying in bed at night trying to fall asleep, but driving, exercising, walking, try and remove the distractions, but give your body something to do. So you're slightly distracted. Sometimes people talk about their best ideas coming in the shower. It's the same type of thing. So that's how I would do the decision time if you were limited on time. And as you're looking at your overall tasks, this is where I've kind of been still figuring this part out, but I look at all of my main goals, or, I call them my high leverage tasks. And it's like, what decisions do I need to make about this before I can start taking action? And then I'll list those out. And then sometimes I'll pull the list out before I go for a hike. And that works really, really well.
Very, very cool. That's all great stuff for people who are strapped for time, like all of us are.
All of us are. And we're strapped for time now because we've been cranking through these. We probably have one question in our final section. Before we get to that, I wanted to ask the audience, when you all are editing videos and posting videos, do you leave small mistakes in your videos, or do you try to remove every slip, every pause, every stumble? And when you watch creators, do you like that? Do you like seeing those kind of human mess ups, things like that? Do you think it makes it more relatable to you? We want to know what you prefer. And then flipping it over to you, Jerry, as well. Jay Baer talks about this planned imperfection, and you often show that, leaving these kind of mistakes, quote unquote mistakes, in your videos can make you more relatable. So how can a small business, solopreneur, entrepreneur intentionally use these little imperfect moments in their videos without looking sloppy or unprofessional?
Well, if anyone is recording perfectly every time, good for you. If that's the case, then maybe you just need to loosen up a little bit before you record so that it comes across more natural. But I think we all make mistakes, and it is literally just leaving them in. If you slightly mispronounce a word, leave it. If you mess up a word and then you pick it up without starting over, leave it. I think that's the most basic thing. A quick story, when I worked in radio, I was doing part-time radio in Seattle, and we would do what we would call air check sessions. And that was when the boss would listen to a recording of your show and, leave you feeling great or feeling terrible. And I had this air check session with this guy, and he listened to it and he goes, really great. Here are all the things you did great. Keep it up. And I said, nothing to work on? And he's like, no, it sounds great. And I said, okay, well, if I'm so great, why am I working Saturday afternoons in Seattle instead of morning drive in New York City, the #1 market in the country? And he said, let me think about that. And he came back a few days later. He goes, I listened to it again. I thought about that. Your tape is too perfect. I never hear you mess up. Your voice never even squeaks. And so I started intentionally going, all right, coming up, and I would literally let my voice squeak until it became natural, to move from being that polished DJ to an actual human. And so I think part of it is just letting your guard down. I like to pretend I'm speaking to one person on the other side who already knows, loves, and trusts me, because then I let my guard down a little bit. When we look at the camera as though it's the worst person in the audience, the troll, that's when we feel like we have to be perfect. So it's a great mindset shift you can make. Speak to the person who already loves you.
That's awesome. Great advice. In fact, we have Tater, as we wrap up, saying, this is why I love that the podcast is live. The mistakes are submitted in. I do edit the audio version a little bit. Yeah, we do too. And even last week, I actually cursed on the air, which I really didn't mean to do, but that stuff happens. AI robot's not going to do that. Jerry, this has been, it's been so much. I mean, we need to do a part 2 sometime soon in the future, because you have such good stuff. But as we wrap up, the floor is yours. Where can people find out more about all things Jerry Potter?
If you are looking to, get going on YouTube and do it in less time, I would go to the yt90roadmap.com. That is the best entry point. If you want to just learn more about how I run my business, as what I call a done by lunch entrepreneur, I have a podcast called Done by Lunch Entrepreneurs, and I take you behind the scenes in my business every single week. And so that would be another great opportunity to hang out.
Awesome. This is amazing. So much fun today. Connor Brown, before we go, where can people find out about the unsinkable Connor Brown?
You can find out more about me at vacationkingdoms.com and at Vacation Kingdoms across the social media. Still recapping my preview cruise on the new Disney Destiny on there, so check it out. Let me just say it was appropriate that Jerry wore that Superman shirt today because he really is. He got some knowledge shared with everyone. It was awesome.
It was. It was a super show. And by the way, if you'd like to find out more about shows and keep up to date with everything that Connor and I do over here live, you can sign up at jeffc.com/news. We'd love to have you be a part of the email community. And with that, thank you guys. Thank you, Tater. Thank you, Kira. Thank you, Ralph. Everybody who watched the show and Maurice, everybody who left questions. We appreciate you. We'd be able to do the show without you. And thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. They have that 40% off for new users. Black Friday sale going on now. So make sure you guys go check that out. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.